I've had a 10-year love affair with this machine, and it's loud, it makes a mess, and it's dangerous, and I wouldn't change a thing. Today I want to tell you about my pin router. So I've been preaching the gospel of using old school tools and old school techniques, and how building musical instruments isn't just something that I do, it's a lifestyle and it's a culture. And I've used this tool so much that it's become as much a part of me as anything else in my life. I bought it from OME Banjos in Boulder, Colorado, and the first time I saw it, it was heaped with a bunch of old junk banjo bits, and it was almost like a storage shelf for a bunch of junk nobody wanted, and it looked neglected as the parts that were stacked up all around it. And I knew I had to give it a home. I knew that I wanted it because the old school guys all had pin routers, and I wanted one too. So it weighs 700 pounds. And I had to rent a forklift to get it out of the banjo factory, and I had to rent a great big truck to move it from there to my home shop. And when we got it set up, it was this hulking, menacing, gigantic, high-speed cutting tool, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I didn't really feel comfortable with what I had bitten off. But we took it apart, and we replaced all the belts, and we replaced all the air hoses. They were all cracked and broken and dry rotted. And we oiled everything that needed to be oiled, and we lubricated everything that needed to be lubricated. As we started putting it back together, it was almost like giving this machine a little bit of TLC. Giving it a new lease on life was exactly what it wanted. And when we finally got it fully operational and fired it up for the first time, it was like, it changed everything. I'm like, yeah, man, this is the tool that I want to use for everything. And to this day, every guitar that leaves the shop has at least an hour or two of time on this machine. So you don't see too many tools like this in modern guitar factories. They use computer numerically controlled cutting heads and do 5 or 10 things at a time, and that's cool. But what happens is people come in and they're like, well, how do you know where the bit is going to be when you use the pneumatic ram, and how do you know you have it set up right? And the fact of the matter is, the owner's manual and the YouTube videos only get you so far. You don't really know. You kind of have to jump in and use the tool and get good at anticipating what's going to happen. So people say stuff like, well, it doesn't seem very safe, and I mean, you really need to get dust collection on there. And I think, electric guitars are dangerous, and they're loud and they're obnoxious. And I think that the guitar builders and the tools that they use should at least have a couple of those things in common with the guitars that they're creating. My approach to building instruments has always been very hands-on. I'm always touching the guitar and feeling things and using my hands to feel variations in the material. And when I'm using tools, I do the same thing. I'm always feeling things. I'm always touching things. I listen and I watch and I pay attention, and I modify my technique and my process to match all the things that I'm feeling and seeing and hearing. So all woodworking tools are finesse tools, and this is certainly no exception. I kind of think of the pin router a little bit like a woman. If you give it the respect that it deserves, it will not let you down. And if you make a mistake, you're going to pay in flesh. Sometimes you have to be gentle, and sometimes you have to be firm, and sometimes you have to be both those things at the same time. And when I have gotten sideways with this tool a few times, or when it decides to get sideways with me, it'll let me know really fast, and things will go bad quickly. But if you let the rest of the world wash away and you're completely focused on what's happening when you're using this machine, it's a beautiful thing. It's this symbiosis between the craftsman and the material and the tool. And it's a very purifying experience, and you're able to block out every other outside stimulus, and you're just focusing on what's happening with this tool. Sometimes people ask me if I could only have one tool in the shop, what would it be? And while I can't imagine the scenario where I had to give up every single piece of woodworking gear I have, that's a no-brainer. It would be my jet pin router. I've got the most time on it, and like I said, it's become a part of who I am, and it's a part of my life. That doesn't mean I want to get rid of everything else, but we've kind of relearned some of the things the old timers probably knew all along, and there's not a lot of documentation on what one factory worker did one time or the other, and the pin router has a lot of little nuances, and if you know what you're doing, or if you know some tricks, it will respond very, very well to you, and it will do things that you never imagined were possible. If I had to do over again, I might not want to talk about how neat pin routers are. They weren't exactly easy to find then, but they're getting harder and harder to find now. So finding parts for this it's not impossible. They still make some things, but you almost have to kludge new to old and graft things together, and that's okay. The one downside is that whenever this machine is down, I feel sick, and I'm like, we have to get it running immediately. So if we have to pull the motor off and get new bearings, or we need even like something as simple as a belt, I feel terrible if it's not 100%. Even if I'm not planning on using it that day, because it's so important to the way that we do things here. The flip side to that is that you guys are getting your own pin routers, and you're discovering how neat they are, and you're having your own love affair with your own tools now, and so that's a cool thing too. I mean, I don't want to take that away from anybody just so that I can have a machine that's that has spare parts, but I do feel like I have a responsibility to this tool, and I feel like it wants to keep making guitars with me for as long as possible. So it keeps chugging away, and I'll fix it, and we'll get through this, and this is still the belle of the ball, and I'll do anything for this machine. One day I'm going to be dead, and maybe this machine will still keep pushing forward and building instruments, and maybe someone from the next generation, maybe a young builder will find this and start their own journey with this tool. It's definitely more durable than I am, and its legacy should be bigger than I am too. And so yeah, I want to keep it going for as long as I can, and who knows, maybe one day somebody else will get to experience it too. So this is my pin router, and it's been called many things, but it's loud, and it makes a mess, and it's dangerous, and I wouldn't change a thing. Thanks for watching, you guys. I wanna play my guitar the only way I know how.